Karma brahmodbhavam viddhi.
Karma
Bhava
brahmabhavam vidhi.
with
Brahmakshara samudbhavam.
Brahmakshara
Brahmakshara Samudbhavam
samudbhavam.
Tasmat sarvagatam brahma.
Tasmat sarvagatam Brahma.
Nityam yagne pratishtitam.
Nityam
Nityam yagne
Yagne
pratishtitam.
Pratisthitam.
So regulate. Yeah, are you joining, Venkatesh? Okay, please come. So regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So where are Vedas manifested? Directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in the acts of sacrifice. So here the key point Lord Krishna is making is sacrifice, yajna. Right? In 310, if you remember from a few weeks ago, we are in 315. Krishna says, maybe we should go there and take a look real quick. What is the purpose of us coming to the material world? Krishna says here, Sahayagnya prajashristva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavisyadvam esavostva ishtakamaduk. Right? In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with sacrifices for Vishnu. So our goal is to perform sacrifice. Be thou happy by this sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily in this lifetime and achieving liberation at end of life. Right? There are only two things. What do you do in this world? And what do you do after this world? Right? Most people are thinking, oh, I should just eat, drink, and be merry in this world so that I'll be born again. But if you properly lead a life, then we will be liberated. So we don't need to be born again. Right? So it's like this. The Lord is saying, oh, you should all come back to me. First, perform sacrifices and then come back to me. And there are a lot of people giving seminars saying how to stay in the material world. And who are these lot of people? Like the biologist, the chemist, the physicist. They are saying, oh, the material world is a place where we can invent more and more things and make it our permanent home. But first of all, this is not even your permanent home. You see the point? So there are a lot of people giving seminars on how you can make this your permanent home. By saying, okay, if you had enough nickel and if you had enough lithium ions, then we can build better batteries and drive better cars like Tesla. But the key point is, you're not even supposed to be here. Right? Why were we sent? We were sent along with demigods, means devatas, along with sacrifices for Vishnu. And what is the injunction? Injunction means what is the order of God? Be thou happy. He didn't say be miserable. Right? By this yajna, sacrifice. Why? Because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily. When you perform yajna, you live happily. And then towards the end of the life, you achieve liberation. So what has happened? This is a temporary place. We are just on a visit. And we are converting into a permanent place by inventing more and more things. Right? Just like now Elon Musk is launching 4,000 satellites around the Earth in low Earth orbit. So there are two orbits. One is called low Earth orbit. One is the high Earth orbit. I think I spoke about this a few weeks ago in one of the slides. I showed you how these various orbital systems work. Right? You remember that? So he's saying, I will do carpet bombing. Every corner of the world will have internet. He already launched 75 satellites 2 Fridays ago. I saw in the news. And in the article it said he got permit from the FCC, Federal Communications Corporation, to launch a total of 4,000 satellites so that he can do carpet bombing of internet around the world. Then of course our friend Jeff Bezos, he doesn't want to be left behind, right? So he took permission to launch an additional 2,000 satellites. So between Elon and Jeff, we'll have around 6,000 satellites floating around. They'll be tracking your every minute move. Like, if you send one text on your phone, tick, 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 tick. Now that goes to the satellite and it goes to some other portion of the world. So every little move is being tracked, right? Which is good. One of my friend, he went on outing and they didn't find him for 2 days. Later on, because the cell phone was emitting a signal, they found his body in one of the mountains here in Washington, right? So he did some, crazy moves, and somewhere he fell down and he died in the mountains. So, there is some benefit, but most of the time marketing people are not using to benefit you, right? They're trying to track you where you are. Oh, you are at this intersection. Let me give him an ad for this, cell phone company here, or a Pizza Hut there, or something like that. So what has happened is, instead of being happy by performing yajna and achieving liberation, we have become attached to this material world by all these inventions and so many creations of the world, which is unnecessary, technically speaking, because what is our job? Perform sacrifice, yajna, and achieve liberation. The job done. Two-step formula, that's it. So what happened? People read this line, living happily, and then they forget this line, these two words, achieving liberation. This is happening in every religion, and that's why everybody is continuing to hang around here. So why I showed you that is because in 15, where we are right now, Krishna is saying the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in the acts of sacrifice, which he mentioned in 310. Right? Okay, Chandra, read the purport.
Yagnartha karma, or the necessity of work for the satisfaction of Krishna only, is more expressly stated in this verse. If we have to work for the satisfaction of Yagna Purusha, Vishnu, then we must find out the direction of work in Brahman or the transcendental Vedas. The Vedas are therefore codes of working directions. Anything performed without the direction of Vedas is called vikarma, or unauthorized or sinful work. Therefore, one should always take direction from the Vedas to be saved from the reaction of work. As one has to work in ordinary life by the direction of the state, one similarly has to work under direction of the supreme state of the Lord. Such directions in the Vedas are directly manifested from the breathing of Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is said, Asya Mahato Bhuttasya Nisvasitam Yataryat Rigvedo Yajurveda Veda Samaveda Sarvangirasha. The four Vedas, namely the Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda, are all emanations from the breathing of the great personality of Godhead. Brahad Aranyaka Upanishad 4.5.11. The Lord, being omnipotent, can speak by breathing air, for as it is confirmed in the Brahma Samhita, the Lord has the omnipotence to perform through each of his senses the actions of all other senses. In other words, the Lord can speak through his breathing, and he can impregnate by his eyes. In fact, it is said that he glanced over material nature and thus fathered all living entities. After creating or impregnating the conditioned souls into the womb of material nature, he gave his directions in the Vedic wisdom as to how such conditioned souls can return home back to Godhead. We should always remember that the conditioned souls in material nature are all eager for material enjoyment. But the Vedic directions are so made that one can satisfy one's perverted desires, then return to Godhead, having finished his so-called enjoyment. It is a chance for conditioned souls to attain liberation. Therefore, the conditioned souls must try to follow the process of yajna by becoming Krishna conscious. Even those who have not followed the Vedic injunctions may adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness, and that will take the place of performance of Vedic yajnas or karmas.
Yeah, so there's a lot of packed information here. So let's go step by step. So much information in this purport, right? So work for the satisfaction of Yajna Purusha Vishnu, right? Everybody has to work. There is no escape. Even if you are not working, that is also working. How? If you say, I don't want to work and sit in the sofa, that's also working. You're sitting in the sofa. So there is no escape from work, right? So the Vedas are codes of working directions. So Vedas say how to work, when to wake up, what direction to say a prayer in the morning, how to brush your teeth, how to take your bath, what to cook, what to offer to the Lord. All this, everything is there in Vedas, right? For example, how to sing for the Lord, Rig Veda says. How to play Kartalam, like tongue, 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 like we link that, right? Like you take two pieces of brass and you hit against each other to make music when you are singing. That is Rig Veda talks about how to play that, how to play the mridanga, like everything is already given. So codes of working direction. So if you perform anything which is not there in the Veda, that's called vikarma. Vikarma is like shaving in the car when you are going to office, right? Or developing products which are not useful for humanity. For example, after Oppenheimer, he developed the atomic bomb. He quoted the Bhagavad Gita. And he said, I made a mistake by developing this atomic bomb. Now everybody is going to destroy everybody. The good news is so far we have not destroyed ourselves. Although Second World War happened 80 years ago, since then things have been relatively peaceful, but not so peaceful. There's still small wars going on, right? So that is one aspect. And the second aspect is the Vedas directly manifested from breathing. So there is one avatara of Lord is called Hayagriva Avatara. So there are 10 primary avatars called Dashavataras, and there are 11 secondary avatars. If you go to Srimad Bhagavatam, all 21 avatars are described. Right? So when Hayagriva breathes, the Vedas come from his nostrils. And then what are the Vedas? Rig, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva. So Lord being omnipotent, potent means strong, omni means in all direction. For example, if you want to buy a microphone, and you go to some online site, they will ask you, do you want an omni-directional mic or unidirectional mic? Omni means every direction. So omnipotent means every possible way you are strong. So there is this advanced text called Brahma Samhita, which is also there on the same site, vedabase.io. It is said that Lord can perform through each of his senses the action of all the other senses. So for you, you have to eat through your mouth, see through your eyes, but Lord can eat through his eyes. So that's why when we offer in the temple in front or in your home, in front of Lord's picture, a plate of whatever you cooked, pongal or sambar or vada, whatever you want to cook and offer. He doesn't need to take it with his hand and put in his mouth. He can glance with his eyes and he can eat through his eyes. Of course, he won't eat everything. He will eat 0.0001% and leave everything else. So you'll barely notice that he has eaten anything. So when Lord sees that and gives it back, that is called prasadam. So when you offer to the Lord, it's called bhoga. Bhog means enjoyment. So Lord is enjoying that food. And then he gives the balance as prasadam. So when we eat the prasadam, our senses are purified. We become pure like that. So the key point is Lord has the omnipotence, means all power. So each sense can do the activities of his other senses, right? So he can eat through his eyes. He can hear through his skin, right? It's not like he hears only through his ears. So when you are chanting the mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Throughout his body, the Lord is perceiving your chanting for him. So, yeah, in a certain sense, you can also do that a little bit, that you can hear the vibrations through your skin, but really you need to hear through your ears to make sense of what the sound is. Right? But the Lord's senses are interchangeable and perfect. He can impregnate by his eyes, right? So since they're all men on the call, I can say, how do we impregnate? We impregnate through our genitals, right? But he can impregnate through his eyes. So he glanced over material nature and thus fathered all living entities. So in the beginning of creation, what does the Lord do? He glances. So he has Ichcha Shakti, and from Ichcha Shakti comes Kriya Shakti, and he just glances, looks at everyone. Not everyone, he looks at material nature, and all the souls, boom, 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 they start coming out. The souls are eternal, they never die. So souls are trapped in the body of the Lord after the pralaya. Pralaya means after the end of the current Kali Yuga, there will be a mini pralaya, and end of every 1,000 cycles of Treta, Dwapara, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga, there will be a medium-sized pralaya, and then at end of Brahma's day, which is 311 trillion with a T earthly years, there will be a mega pralaya. Means all the universes collapse. So call it Big Bang, Big Crunch, whatever you want to call it. They actually call the pralaya as Big Crunch, when everything gets crunched up. And bang is when everything gets released. So they don't say where it is getting released from. It is actually getting released from body of Vishnu, according to the Brahma Samhita, according to the Srimad Bhagavatam. So what the Lord does, he glances and he fathers. He doesn't need a mother to produce babies. This is one other, all of us need wives to produce babies, but he doesn't need a wife. Krishna or Vishnu can produce just by mere glancing. Then after creating and impregnating the conditioned soul. So what is conditioned? What does this word mean to you, Chandar?
Like groomed souls, like to follow with set of, taught up with.
Yeah, to follow voluntarily is not conditioning. To follow involuntarily is conditioning. You see the difference?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like
yeah.
we are conditioned, right? How are we conditioned? Once you are in the software profession for 20 years, you don't even look at the keyboard. You just open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and then you are writing statements. Whatever, right? You are creating an array, you are putting the code in the array, it will read from input file, output file. You are conditioned to write that code. In the same way, we are conditioned to stay in the material world. Or although Krishna said, you perform yajna and come back to me, we are conditioned. And have you heard of Pavlov, the Russian scientist? He did experiments on dogs. He conditioned dogs, right? He would throw a biscuit, dog will come. Second day, he'll throw a biscuit, dog will come. Third day, he'll just move his hand like this. There's no biscuit, but still dog will come. Because it's conditioned to think that when Pavlov moves his hands, biscuits are going to come out of his hand. Right?
Yeah.
And there is one more research that was done by Pavlov's disciples or students, where they put a rat in a cage. Right? Every day at one point, they would put cheese. And then they would ring a bell, ting, ting. So the rat will come. They would associate the ting, ting bell with the cheese. After some time, they would not say ting, ting. Then the rat would not come because it's thinking only ting, ting means cheese. No ting, ting, no cheese. Right? So that is conditioning. We are conditioned to behave in a certain way. Rats are conditioned to behave in a certain way. Pavlov showed that dogs can be conditioned in a certain way. And then one day what they did, the rat was in a cage, right? They opened the door of that cage. So what do you expect when rat is in a cage and you open the door? The rat will escape, right? Guess what? It did not escape because it's got conditioned to eating the cheese at whatever 10 o'clock every morning. So it's thinking, if I go out, who is going to give me cheese? At least here, 10 o'clock every morning, there is cheese coming free of cost. So that is how we are also conditioned. Although this is not our home, we are conditioned to be here, which means boss is giving salary, so I'll write some code. And everything else is immaterial to me. I'll click a button on Amazon, I'll get a product on the front door. So I work for my boss by delivering code. Salary will automatically go into my bank account. From bank account, I'll click on a button that goes to credit card. From credit card, there is auto deduction from my bank account. So we are conditioned to these set of activities. And with whatever products come in the front door, we cook and eat. And again, we write some more code. So we are conditioned souls. So even though the door was opened, the rat did not escape because it's thinking free cheese. So even though we have freedom to get out of this rigmarole of 8 to 5, we won't get out. We are conditioned because salary is coming at end of the month.
Yeah, I see the meaning. It's bring to a desired state of something.
Yeah. But desired or non-desired, you are thinking it is desired, but it may be contrary to our desire, right? How, like, if you look at it, in 17th century, people in Africa used to work for 2 to 3 hours a day collecting nuts. And they were perfectly happy. In the 1800s in Britain, people were working 8 hours in the factory. And now IT engineers are working 16 hours every day. Continuously, you have a pager on one side, cell phone on the other side. Email keeps on coming, you have to respond it. Right? So it may not be desired. I don't think this is, I don't think anybody wants to work 16 hours a day, but these devices are making you work 16 hours a day. So from 2 to 3 hours a day for collecting nuts to 8 hours in a factory, we ended up working 16 hours a day in the IT industry. So it is desired or undesired. Still conditioning is there. So we are conditioned to enjoy material world. That's why we are called conditioned souls. So after creating or impregnating the conditioned souls into womb of material nature, so he doesn't need Lakshmi Devi to produce kids. He directly injects them into material nature. So directly we are here on the material world. And then he is not so cruel, right? So he gives directions as to how the conditioned souls can return back home to Godhead. So, but the trick is, most people don't even want to open that book. Instructions are there. The manual is there, Baba, but you have to show interest to open the book. So instructions are there on how the conditioned souls can return back home, back to Godhead. So this is not our home. Our home is somewhere else. We are just born to some material parents here. Our material parents are also helpless. They don't know who they are going to give birth to. Some souls are thrown in their womb. And you cannot choose your parents also. Does anybody remember putting an application form, mommy, daddy, give birth to me? No, right? So we are forced to take birth. So the key thing is we are all eager for material enjoyment. That is why we never leave. Even though the door is opened in the form of Vedic scriptures, this is the way to get out. Nobody wants to get out. Like for example, in Islam, they say if you worship God, you'll go to Jannat. Jannat means heaven. So what do you do there in Jannat? More enjoyment. Okay. So there's only less enjoyment here, more enjoyment in heaven. But who is talking about going back to the spiritual world? Nobody's talking about that. And at least Islam is talking about going to Jannat. Prosperity theology is only talking about staying here and enjoying this material world. That's why nobody's getting liberated, right? Everybody's here, nobody's leaving. And then after somebody dies, they'll again come back as some remote family member because they're attached to the same family. There are many movies about it also in Tamil, Telugu, Hindi, where the same person, some person dies and again it takes birth in the same family. Why? Because we are addicted to material enjoyment. So what do they do in a de-addiction camp if somebody is like doing dam, marijuana, cocaine or whatever? So in the de-addiction camp, they don't immediately stop, because if they immediately stop giving that thing, the fellow will go crazy. So every day, slowly they will reduce the dosage. And finally, after like 30 days, 45 days, they'll totally stop and say, sir, now you're free, you can go home. How do I know this? Because we used to have a free vegetarian restaurant and now we converted that into free food truck, giving prasadam. And so these drug addicts used to come and I used to talk to them. So yeah, there are de-addiction camps. So same way, we need a de-addiction camp for our material enjoyment. This is also an addiction. So everybody know the meaning of addiction? Yeah? Chandar? Shesh there?
Yeah, I mean you cannot live without it. I mean you just have to keep doing it.
Yeah. That's what it's become for us right now. We cannot live with our laptop now. We are so addicted. We cannot live with material things without material things. So we are all eager. That is our
Yeah.
nature. That's why we are in the material world. So now we have to go to the de-addiction camp. And what is the de-addiction camp? That is what this Hare Krishna movement is. So Srila Prabhupada said, we are like a doctor's office. You're all patients who are coming to the doctor office to get fixed. And what is the disease? The disease is this: material enjoyment. Whatever shape it might take, nationalism. Like some people say, yeah, I don't even care about my family. I am here to die for my country. Mera Bharat Mahan, I'll die for India. Or God bless America, I will die for America. So they sacrifice their family, but they're still addicted to country. So sometimes addicted to country, sometimes addicted to family, sometimes addicted to work. There'll be some people, they live for work. Like always they are working. They have no goal in life, just work at office. Right? So this de-addiction camp is the Hare Krishna movement. We are the doctors. Of course, even though I'm teaching you, I'm also a patient, but I'm less patient than the newcomers who are coming in. So there are doctors who are curing me and I'm trying to cure you. What is that cure? The cure is remember that we don't belong here and we need to go back to where we came from. And how do you go back? By rekindling our memory, right? So how do you rekindle your memory of the spiritual world? Vedic directions are so made that one can satisfy one's perverted desire and return to Godhead. God didn't say, oh, don't fulfill your desire. Yeah, you want to have a good job, have it. You want to have a good family, have it. Have 10 kids if you want to have. But end of the life, you have to return back to me, he's saying. So he's saying one can satisfy. He didn't say don't satisfy. Satisfy one's perverted desires. And then return, having finished his so-called enjoyment. So it's not real enjoyment. This is called so-called enjoyment, right? Sometimes people go to a bar, right? And they will order some heavy alcohol, like 40% alcohol, some aged whiskey or something. And everybody will lift their hand, the peg, they'll put in their mouth. How did you feel? Yeah, the throat burnt very much. So they're calling it enjoyment. Actually, there's no enjoyment. It is, they're burning their throat with 40% alcohol. That's why it's called so-called enjoyment. You think there is enjoyment. What enjoyment is there, right? Half of all marriages end in divorce in America. Kids don't listen to parents. So you think there is enjoyment, but it's a big headache actually. So yes, you can satisfy your desires, but you have to return back home. That is our spiritual world. We have to go back to our Father Krishna. And then he's saying it is a chance. Krishna is giving you a chance for the conditioned souls to attain liberation. This in itself sums up the reason for having this planet Earth. A chance for conditioned souls to attain liberation by doing a set of processes. But most people will argue, no, that is what is said in your religion. I created my own religion. My religion is that you should drink as much as possible till you start vomiting, and do as much sex as possible, and then one fine day you die. Right? Because people are crazy. They don't want to take scriptural knowledge. Right? Scriptural knowledge is there. Like last time we saw in the prosperity theology, right? One of the Christian was attacking his fellow Christian ministers. He was saying this prosperity theology is wrong. Jesus never said you become rich. Jesus said you quit this world and go back liberated and go to Father in heaven. What does Father in heaven means? Means you have to leave this world to go there. So this is a chance is being given to us. But if we waste it, again, punarapi maranam, punarapi jananam. We take birth again. So we must try to follow. You may not be perfect, but at least you should try to follow the process of yajna by becoming Krishna conscious. Conscious means what? Like there is unconscious when you are not really, feeling anything. But when you are conscious, you should be Krishna conscious. Oh, Krishna, God has created this universe, giving me a chance to rectify my nonsense behavior. And so that end of my life, I can go back to my Father Krishna. So with this philosophy, if you go to that Palace of Gold in West Virginia, Chandar, then you'll appreciate it better. Otherwise, it will become just like a museum. Drive for 4.5 hours, then you'll regret it. Arey, why did I drive for 4.5 hours just to see a museum? Right? So we need to have some Sambandha Jnana. Sambandha Jnana means philosophy. Right? So yesterday, one of our visiting professors, Keshwananda Prabhu, he gave something about Sambandha Jnana. So I will talk about that. I just made notes. I made like 4 or 5 slides worth of notes. Yeah. So let me put it in a new slide so that it looks good. So Sambandha means relationship. Abhidheya means, what is Abhidheya? Sheshdev? You know?
The aim?
No.
The prajna is the result. The process.
Yeah. You should have some relationship with someone, and the aim is relationship and aim, you can say here, or goal. And then process, and then result, right? So with anything in life, you need these 3 steps. First, you should have a relationship, a structure, and then you should know the process, and then you can finally come to the result. So the Srimad Bhagavatam first shloka says, Janmadi asya adaha, that from which everything emanates, right? So we are talking about even higher than God. So we are saying the absolute truth from which everything emanates, that is Krishna. There are a lot of gods, no doubt about it, demigods, devatas, but there has to be one central connection, central point, fulcrum point, that is Krishna. Janmadiyasya yadaha anvayad itaratas charte swabhigna swarat tene brahmahrida adikavaye muhyanti yat suraya tejo vari mridam yata vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisa dhamna svena sarashta nirashtakuhakam satyam param dhimahi. Satyam param means param satyam. The absolute truth is Krishna. There are many truths, right? You are the son of your father. Nobody can deny that. And some of you have American citizenship. You are a citizen. Nobody can deny that. But what is the absolute truth? That comes from relationship. So everything has to come to that absolute truth. Then the process, abhideya. So it says, Janma projita kaitavotra Paramo nirmasarana matam Vedyam vastam atra vastu Sivadam tapatrayon Srimad Bhagavate Mahamanikrite Kimva Parayarishvaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudhyate Kritabi Shushrusabi Takshanat. So when I attended this course, my teacher made me memorize all these things. That's why I'm able to recite them. So you should also learn all these shlokas, Bhagavad Gita shlokas. Otherwise, your knowledge will not be complete. Then comes the result. Nizam is Nigalma Galpa Taror Pivatam Rasalayam Suka Mukha. I am forgetting now. So this is like the essence of all the Vedas comes in Srimad Bhagavatam, and just like a apple which is pierced by a parrot's beak is more tasty than a regular apple, when Suta Goswami, Sukadev Goswami recites the Srimad Bhagavatam, it becomes even more mellifluous or musical or sweet. So first two things, relationship and process, are kind of dry subject matters. Oh, God is so great. Oh, we have to kick out all false religion and take up this process of devotion. But how you actually, make it to fruition? This is the Shastra Nipuns, or people who are skilled at it, extract the rasa from the previous two processes. So that is how we have to do. We have to seek this help of acharyas who have extracted this rasa, and we have to become Krishna conscious. Normally we are consciousness of matter, right? All our thoughts are material thoughts. Oh, I'll buy this, I'll buy that. Oh, my car is not working properly. Let me fix the tires. Let me fix the engine, or this or that. They're all material thoughts. So now we need to shift those thoughts to the absolute truth, Krishna. Param Satyam. Satyam Param Dhimahi. The very first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. And then Swamiji says, even those who have not followed the Vedic injunctions may adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness. I have zero idea about Vedas. I have no idea. All the idea that I have is in conjunction with reading Bhagavad Gita, where there is some reference to the Vedas. But that is sufficient. Actually, if you adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness, which means chanting the names of Krishna, just like if somebody says Chandar, Chandar, then you feel happy because somebody is calling you by name in a loving manner. Same thing with Krishna. We call him again and again and again. Our mind gets disciplined and we become happy. So I also have a slide on what happens when you chant Hare Krishna. So you should know, right? You should not blindly chant. So chanting of holy name Hare Krishna can do 11 things. One is it purifies our heart. Our heart is like a rock right now. It's like steel. Because every time we get rejected or we get denied something in the material world, our heart is becoming hard and hard. We have some vengeance. Arey, if only I got into IIT. Arey, if only I got into, name your company. I could have been so rich. If only I got into Google when it was a small company. All those people are now like 10, 20 millionaires. Each one has $20 million because the stock went up. So all these hard things within our heart are there. So when we chant Hare Krishna mantra, it purifies our heart gradually, not in one shot. But more importantly, it removes the root of impurity. So this is the problem with the Christianity religion, right? What do? They just go every Sunday morning, confess to the priest and say, Father, forgive me. I have committed this sin, this sin, this sin. So Father will say, okay, you put some donation in the hundi box. So the fellow will take out $100, puts in the hundi, feels very happy and gets out. Okay, you confessed, you purified your heart temporarily, but the root of impurity is still within the heart. So we have to take out the root. Like if you have a lawn in front of your house, if you're taking out the weeds, You have to take it out with the root. Otherwise, next week again you have to pull. Again, it will start growing. So we have to remove the root of impurity. And it removes the desire to harm ourselves. Because we are into a harm ourselves mode right now. We are doing things which are not good for us. So we have to remove that desire to harm ourselves. So while the general yoga process can remove lust and greed to some extent, desire to engage lust and greed is removed by the holy name. Right? So you cannot control your anger, okay? You cannot control your greed, okay? When you chant the holy name, desire to engage in the greed activity or lusty activity can be removed. So holy name gives light like the moon. When the moon comes in the night, all the lotus flowers, you don't see them in America, but you see them in India. I saw them in Jaipur actually, and in Jodhpur also, where I visited to go to Srinathji temple. There is a beautiful Vishnu temple in Jodhpur. So they only offer lotus flower to him because there's so many lotus flowers there, almost like marigolds in America. So our heart is like a lotus flower and holy name is like moon. So when moon comes, the lotus flower blooms. So there are a lot of good people in the world, but a lot of people are good with selfishness. But when you chant the holy name, you'll become good without selfishness gradually. A lot of good people, right? But they're still selfish. So this is, you develop good qualities without selfishness. And then also it nourishes the divine qualities and makes, I never finished that sentence, nourishes the divine qualities and makes you divine. Then it gives knowledge of the absolute truth, the Param Satyam that I just talked about, above all relativities, and makes us realize that we are a servant of Krishna. And not only that, you'll relish the fact that we are a servant of Krishna. Right now, we think I'm nobody's servant, but actually we are everybody's servant. You are paying 33% of your income tax, of your income as tax. You're a servant of US government. You are working like a donkey, whatever your boss asks you to do. So you're a servant of your boss. And then at home, we are listening to our wives say anything. So we are servants of our wives. And more importantly, we are servant of our tongue. Right? Our tongue can talk whatever nonsense and we get into trouble. We all have been victims of this. So when we chant the Hare Krishna mantra, it gives knowledge of the Param Satyam above all relativities. Then it increases ocean of bliss and devotion, Anandambudhi Vardhanam. Means as we go gradually from sadhana stage to bhava stage, sadhana means where we are right now, we're trying to practice some basic devotion. Bhava means emotional stage, where whether you like it or not, the natural emotion towards God comes out. That comes because when we chant Hare Krishna mantra for a period of 10, 15 years, you are put into autopilot mode now. So you're almost expecting, oh, when will my Krishna come? Will I be able to see him right now? Like that. And then the holy name carries us like a father carries child over water without the child getting wet. Father is crossing a stream. Father gets wet, but he will prevent the child from getting wet. And every step along the way, we will relish the rasa. Pivatam Bhagavatam Rasalayam. This is again stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Rasa means that emotion. I put in a picture of the heart from Popular Mechanics here on the left. And I put in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chanting the Hare Krishna mantra within the heart. Then finally, we will drown all of our senses into ocean of bliss with primary and secondary rasas. There are 64 different kinds of rasas that are mentioned in Nectar of Devotion. So Bhishma, when he was fighting with Lord Krishna in the battlefield, Krishna was not really fighting, Arjuna was fighting under Krishna's order. Bhishma moved from Dasya, servitude, to Madhurya. So he was getting loving feelings towards Krishna, to Virya, to feeling of like directly fighting with Krishna. Hey Krishna, come, why don't we fight? So all these different emotions, mellows come in the heart. And as a result, we forget ourselves in the material world and we go into a trance of the spiritual world. So yeah, holy name can do all these things. So that is Krishna consciousness, chanting to develop that emotion towards God. Of course, there are other things, but primary thing is chanting. So any questions on this one?
So probably there are like 4 Vedas, right? So what's written in different Vedas? Is it based on, like you mentioned there are like codes of work in Vedas?
No, basically, originally there was only one Veda, but because it was such a big volume of work, Vyasadeva then broke it down into 4 Vedas. These are basically 4 sections, if you will. So Rig Veda, as I said, right, our day-to-day life, there is music, there is dance, there are various ways of worshipping the Lord. And then I think Ayurveda comes under Yajurveda, potentially. My memory is not very good. So it has information on how to live, right? Like Ayurveda talks about medicinal qualities, how to take care of your body, like that, right? So each one of these Vedas has different pieces of information. Again, open to research. I have not researched it fully.
Yeah, okay.
But the Vedanta Saramsham is in Bhagavad Gita, right? So if you read the Bhagavad Gita as we are doing right now, then you know what to do in life. You don't need to, because if you to read these 4 Vedas, it will take 40 years for you. Do you have 40 years left on this planet? That's the question. So better to just stick to the, just like, right, before going to exam, if the whole year you didn't study, like my brother is on the call right now. I know some of our classmates, we studied at University of Pune together. So my brother used to write very good notes. And the day before exam, there was a line outside our room. So everybody would come, they would take his notes, go to the local photocopy place, make photocopies, and then whole night out they will do, read the same thing that my brother prepared over the entire year and pass the exam. And if my brother got like 60 marks, they would get like 55 marks, not too much less. Right? So if you screwed up your whole life not reading anything, read the Bhagavad Gita. It is the short form essence. I don't think you have time. I don't have time. I have a family, 2 kids, taking care of them. I don't have time to read all this. So stick to the minimal. We have examination coming up. Just stick to the basics and somehow or the other pass the exam. Any other questions? Okay, let's chant.